First things first, I was going sort of digging through the archives. The PlayStation 1 at launch in Japan had a mouse. You could get a PlayStation mouse, which included a mouse pad, which was specifically for playing mostly point and click games.
Yep.
You could obviously play with a controller. This is extremely funny to me because again, it's that wonderful Sony proprietary tech. This plugs into the controller port.
Yep.
This is not for using on your computer. You cannot. I guess you could.
You could. There's adapters nowadays to where you could, but
What's gone wrong in your life that you need a USB to PlayStation adapter to plug in your PlayStation mouse so you can use it with your PC?
So like I had the adapter for a while because I had dance pads for DDR on my PS2, and it would work for the same way for that. But yeah.
Did you have a PlayStation mouse though?
I did not have a PlayStation mouse, so we're off to a 0-1 start for Jada owning things. But like you said, it was a Japan release type thing, so haven't been to Japan yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones I feel like it has such a small install base that it's probably weirdly valuable as a collectible.
I've seen it at like conventions and stuff. I was like, oh, I could buy this for my collection, but I was like, this has absolutely zero use for me, so I'm not going to spend like the $40 or $50 they wanted for it.
Well, next is one that is, I feel like, very hallowed. Like, I remember seeing this ads for this in the back of magazines as a kid and being like, I can't wait to get one of these, and then never getting it. The Pocket Station. The little tiny, it was a memory card. It was also a PDA, I think. Like, it had a little LCD screen on it.
I remember that one because wasn't it similar to like basically like the Dreamcast memory card kind of type thing? Yeah.
It came out about 6 months after the VMU did, and it was a huge hit in Japan, apparently. Like, it just sold out immediately. It was a big, huge runaway hit. This was right when people probably, like, cell phones were a reality, but not fully everywhere yet, I don't think. And then they were like, hey, here's this thing that's like a basically next gen Tamagotchi that has mini games, and you can carry your games with you, and you can use like infrared transfers and stuff. So it had a lot of potential, a lot of things it could do. But for whatever reason, the plans to release it in North America and Europe got scrapped sort of last minute. I can't help but feel like maybe Sony sort of looked at the rise and fall of the Dreamcast and the VMU and were just like, let's maybe not do that. Maybe people aren't going to pay extra for a memory card that plays Crash Bandicoot.
I was always frustrated by this because, as we talked before, I'm a very big Final Fantasy fan. And there was integration with the Pocket Station in Final Fantasy VIII, and that was still in the code for the US versions, but obviously we didn't have this Pocket Station thing. So there was an entire minigame that like I couldn't access, and like some part of me as a child was like so frustrated that I couldn't play what was probably a very stupid chocobo hunting minigame that I wouldn't have cared about anyway.
It looks so cool though. Like, I love this. I love the design of this little thing. It's so cute. No, here's the thing that really just feels like a deliberate screw you to Western gamers. They made a dedicated Pocket Station Vita app. Like, it was basically all the fun of the Pocket Station on your Vita, and then that was only released in Japan too. So thanks a lot, Sony. We still want Pocket Stations. Make a Vita 2, and then make us the Pocket Station app for that.
I want a Pocket Station for my PS5. That's just, I mean, the technology is there now.
So it is funny to think that was Sony's first handheld. We always look at sort of the PSP and the Vita, that kind of stuff. There was another one that came after, sort of with an asterisk, with some caveats. There was the PlayStation 1 LCD screen. Sorry, PS1, not the PlayStation. The little baby one.
Yeah, the little one that had it was like rounded on the edges and stuff like that. Yeah. I had this one.
You had, of course.
I had this one. This one I had the PS1 with the LCD screen. And I initially bought it for when I was at like, I used to have to spend time at my grandpa's house, and he didn't have game consoles. So I convinced him to buy me this little PS1 with the LCD screen. So when I was hanging out at grandpa's house, I'd have video games to play, and I would play like Tomb Raider on it, which was terrible on this tiny screen. Because I don't know if you guys remember what Tomb Raider 1 looked like on the PS1 on a TV, but crunching it down to an LCD screen made it even harder to see traps and where to swim underwater. Was a nightmare.
Colin, what's your stance on the LCD? I feel like this was one of the most coveted things as a child, just like you need.
Yeah, I would see it in so many print advertisements in game magazines, and I was obsessed. I really wanted it, but I never had a PS1 in the first place. When I got my PS2, it was backwards compatible, and I started playing like every PS1 game from that point on. But, you know, as a kid, you don't have a job. You have to pick and choose. And my older brothers chose the N64. And that's fine. There's some bangers on there.
Never had an LCD screen, though.
It did not.
you
It
put
did not. That one actually would have probably worked even better.
But it did have an
as far as the
expansion
Square
pack.
nature goes. That's true. That's true. But yeah, I always really wanted this thing, and I always was just like, oh, this would be so cool on like long road trips and stuff. But no, never got it.
Yeah. So this actually, it's funny you bring up the PS2 because this actually dropped, I think, after or shortly. Like the PS1 itself was around the time the PS2 did, and the screen didn't come out until afterwards. That actually came out, I think, in the winter of 2001. So like at that point, most people were probably spending money on a PlayStation 2 because there were amazing games coming out left and right for that.
Yeah, I had my PS. That's what I was saying. I had my PS2 at home, but I didn't have anything at my grandpa's house, and he lived literally like next door to my high school. I was in high school during this time, so I was like, "Hey, Grandpa, you should get to this PS1 Classic." He was a very cool grandpa. He is a very cool grandpa. Hi, Grandpa.
I'm glad he's still around. Thanks for watching, Grandpa. Now here's one that a lot of people had. The PS2 Toy was a huge hit. That was a massive success. And it's funny because I feel like everyone gives, you know, like Nintendo credit for introducing motion controls, but this came first. This had this was what I think 2002 or 3. It was the pack-in game iToy Play was the 18th best-selling game for PS2.
Yep,
which is it sold around something like 4 million units, which is crazy. That's huge. But also considering the sort of massive install base of the PS2 itself, kind of a drop in the bucket, you know. But this is it also, there's something I noted about this. It could be used as a regular webcam with computers, which is like, I wish maybe Sony would look at that in regards to their VR headsets. Like maybe a little bit of like playing nice with other hardware might make your products more appealing in the grander scheme of things. Just a thought, just throwing that out there.
Oh, I remember that one, hitting little dudes into the targets.
This is the funny thing about this. I was reading about where it came from, and I think the guy who invented it didn't work at Sony at the time, but he saw a demo of, I think, the PlayStation 2 at an event and was like, "Eureka!" And then he just got a job there, and he was like, "Check it out! You can make a webcam that controls games." And I'm just like, I want to know the story there. That seems like a very
that's wild.
That one. Okay, so everyone knows about the iToy. Here's something that came out for the PlayStation 2 that will make your brain hurt.
I'm 2 for 4 right now.
You don't have this one.
Okay.
You don't have this one. If you do, I don't know how to proceed. The Sega Saturn control pad for PlayStation 2. Sega released an official, this is actually isn't Sony officially branded, this was released by Sega, but it's too weird not to put on this list. It was a dedicated Sega Saturn controller that plugged into a PS2. That was it. It's actually subtly different from the regular Sega Saturn controller because it has a select button in addition to a start button. However, as far as PlayStation 2 controllers go, it has the A, B, C, and X, Y, Z buttons, that's a whole thing on its own. And then there's bumpers, but there's only L1 and L2. And then there's no, I guess you could...
Wait, L1 and L2, they're just on one side?
No,
There's two L2 and R2. Okay, I'm just making sure.
It's a left-handed controller. That's
what I was gonna say. I was like, that's really cool.
Flanders invented it. No, I guess basically the two of the bumpers would be mapped to two of the face buttons in this case, but it doesn't. It's also missing an entire analog stick. I mean, it doesn't have any analog sticks. It has no. It's missing a directional input, and then of course the L3 and R3. No,
I have a feeling. I have a feeling this was made specifically for like Virtua Fighter. Like, this is like a Virtua. This looks like a Virtua Fighter controller.
For Sega Saturn fans. Just an idea, just a thought.
All two of them?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's okay. Everyone gives Sega Saturn crap because it face planted colossally in the West, but it was a huge hit in Japan.
Yep.
Did really
a lot of good games. A lot of good games on the Saturn.
Yeah. Now, moving on, another console generation leap forward. You actually have this one. I wish you'd brought it in. The PlayStation 3 memory card adapter, which
this thing was so handy for me.
These things, these sell for a lot on the secondhand market. It is a little box you can plug your memory card into that has a USB out that you can plug into your PS3, so you can transfer your PS2 saves, assuming you have a backwards compatible PS3, which was 2/3 of the launch editions could do it in-house, but the other one was emulated.
So there was a 20 gig and a 60 gig that were both backwards compatible, and then there was a 40 gig that was not backwards compatible.
There's a lot of fine print.
Yes. You had to do a lot of research in the PS3 days.
The funny thing about this is that it works. It's like it's backwards compatible, or this not backward. This is compatible across the board. It works with all generations of the PS3, even though if you have PS2 files that you're trying to transfer, like they're not going to play nice with the later versions of the PS3. The whole thing. This seems like such a bizarre sort of vestigial, like just an evolutionary concept. This is literally the jump from conventional memory cards to like storing actual files, like on
drives.
So
Yeah, no, this was great. I love this because I was able to bring all my PS1 save files into my PS3, and then because PlayStation 3 is when they started rolling out all these digital downloads for PS1 games. I was like, cool, I don't have to start over on Final Fantasy 7 or any of my games. Like my Tactics file, that was the big one I brought over. Is my Final Fantasy Tactics file. Did not want to lose that.
yeah, this one's really funny though, because it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that Sony would dedicate their own hardware manufacturing resources towards. Like it either seems like the kind of thing that, okay, we'll just, I mean, maybe they would, but I think there were also like third-party versions, like the Mad Catz version.
Nyko or PDP. I think one of those companies would have done something like this. But yeah,
that's something we've seen them doing a lot more recently in like the PS4 generation, of basically granting official Sony branded, like, what is it, Hyper A or whatever, like they make officially licensed but not made by Sony peripherals and accessories, which is smart because it makes it someone else's problem unless it screws up, and then people are mad at your name being on the box.
I had this because I was in that small pool of people who had a 60 gig PS3, and I if I recall correctly, we had 7 PlayStation 2 memory cards, and I remember the day that I spent like plugging each and every one of these in. I had like notes on the back of each one saying like what files were in each one.
You're way more meticulous than I was.
Well, it was because I was so obsessed because I had 2 older brothers and they were constantly like losing things. I was the responsible one, and I'm the youngest one, which is still the case. Let's be real. But I remember that day of meticulously like putting each and every one in, getting all of those save files over, and then well, this paints me in a bad light. But after I got all of that over, I gave my PS2 to like a childhood friend. And I guess it technically wasn't completely mine to give because I think it was partially me and my brothers, but like one of them was off at college already. One of them never played video games. So I just didn't think about it. And it caused one of the biggest fights I've ever had with my brothers in my entire life. So that memory card adapter is all sort of bundled together in like a very strange, like, memory of me and my brothers like having a fallout for like a few months. We settled down. That was it was tense amazing. For a while there.
Yeah. There's a lot of baggage attached to that little tiny peripheral.
Buying consoles with siblings and stuff is always, and when you're growing up, is always a challenge. Like,
well, here's one. This next one, which I think apparently you both have it. The PlayStation 3D gaming monitor.
Yeah. I have 2 of those.
You have what?
I have 2 of them.
Why?
I worked at a GameStop when they came out, and I used them as my PC monitors as well.
So these, I desperately wanted one of these so badly. They're so cool. It's actually kind of weird that we don't see more stuff like this, considering that Sony also makes TVs.
Yep.
But this had a thing called SimulView, where you could put on 2 people could put on pairs of glasses and play.
I should have brought those in. I have 4 of those at home.
God, and you could each see your own screen.
Yeah,
I only remember
so cool.
It was like MotorStorm Apocalypse. I think supported this.
I think it was bundled with it.
God, it's such a cool idea. I remember just thinking this is the best thing ever. It's so gimmicky. Apparently, it's a decent enough display, good monitor, whatever. But like, I love that it also just looks sort of like a giant Vita.
Yep,
it's just got those weird curves on the side. But
it really does.
Obviously 3D TV didn't quite pan out. But
yeah, it was solid. Like, I used it to watch a couple 3D movies here and there, and then the biggest hiccup for it was there was an issue with the refresh rate. So whenever I was playing stuff like on my PC, using it as a PC monitor, it would randomly flicker because the refresh rate couldn't keep up. So that's how it like would keep up. It would cut to black and then come back up. But the problem is I was playing games like League of Legends where it would always blink right when I was trying to aim a skill shot or dodge a skill shot, and I would die every time. And so I bought an actual monitor after that because I was tired of it.
Yeah,
but
that refresh issue hit me too.
Yep.
Yeah. I used it when it first came out because I wanted like a nice like 1080p TV to play my PS3 games on and not have to like share a TV with family members and stuff when I wanted to. And I used it a little bit. I used it a while, but obviously it's a very small monitor. What was it, like 24 inches or something?
Sounds right.
Yeah. And I eventually sort of just used it as like sort of a spare screen to have whenever I needed it in like a pinch.
Yep.
And I probably the last like few years I ever used it. I was back at my parents' house for a little while during the pandemic, and I don't like having a TV in my bedroom because I need to like sort of screen off for a while before I go to bed. But I would sort of keep it there if I was ever like sick and I wanted to like watch stuff in bed. And so I would like lug this thing out of the closet, put it on my bedside table, like connect like my Mac through like an HDMI and would like watch Netflix on it or whatever. And it was like probably the most like sort of jerry rigged I've ever like been as far as technology goes, but it was useful. I got over a decade of use out of it.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah,
pretty good investment.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those strange things. Like Sony made this thing, they made a PlayStation branded TV, and then never spoke of it again. It just kind of went the way of 3D TV overall. Now, the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 both got slim versions. So did the PS4. The PS3 did too, but then it got a super slim version, which is such a funny little machine. And it's like, it
looks so bad.
It was kind of like it was almost as bad as like the Wii Mini. If you remember that one, that was like a little red box.
It only came out in Canada or something.
Yeah, it was so ridiculous. But yeah, this one, I don't know, man.
How many PS3s did you have?
I had 2 PS3s.
And you didn't have one of these?
I did not buy the Super Slim because my 60 gig worked for a while. Then I bought a Slim when my 60 gig got the good old yellow light of death. And then I made it sit there and I pointed my 60 gig at the Slim while I played it to make it jealous. Waited 6 months out of jealousy, then cleaned it out again because I cleaned it beforehand, and then powered it on, and it's worked ever since. It learned its lesson. So there you go. If something stops working, just make it stare at something that does work for 6 months.
Colin, what's your experience with this?
I never got it. I think it came out after the PS4, right?
No, it was right before.
Right before.
I think it was like 6 months before. It was like such a weird. That was the weird thing about it.
Yeah, and it was just it didn't do anything new or special. It was just clearly like a very cheap build for them, so they could get as much profit out of each sale as they could, which is what they've always done. That's the whole point of the Slim versions of all of these consoles. And oftentimes they come with like a better design. Like the first PS3 Slim looks better than the original PS3 in my mind. This looks worse than both of them.
Everyone hates it but me? What's so bad about it?
Well, does the top slide?
Yes, the top slides over.
Yeah.
Do you know how expensive it is for the console to suck the disc in and spit it back out? Like that is
not that expensive.
It uses cutting edge technology. Make a little mouth in there that goes num 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 num.
There's a little Kirby in there.
You had to slide the door open like you're gonna put soap in the dishwasher, like a plastic tray. I just remember the reviews were like, it's a PS3, but it feels cheap. It's like, okay.
It did feel pretty cheap. I handled so many of these during my time at GameStop, and like also these ones were probably the dirtiest consoles that I got because the opening was the biggest, so more dirt could get in there for people who did not take care of their stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. I think it's a little cutie. I think it is funny that it was like that is also a testament to how big the PS3 was at launch and that it had to get a super slim. Wonder if the PS5 is going to get a super duper slim or something in 2031 or whatever down the road a little bit. Now we talked about the PlayStation 3 3D gaming monitor, but what about the PlayStation TV, which is in fact not a TV at all, but the bizarre sort of it's a
Vita player.
It's a Vita without a Vita. It's what if you took all of the thrills of gaming on the go and made it a thing you did at home. It was also kind of a set-top box at the time when people were like jumping on Chromecast. This is such a wonderful idea, and I wish that it had taken off more. You know what? One thing might have actually helped with that. If the memory cards didn't cost half as much as the system itself.
Yeah, that was a killer for it. I still have this hooked up to my main TV right now, like just for whenever I want to play. Like, I don't have to do it anymore because Persona 4 Golden is gotten remastered and stuff. But anytime I want to play Persona 4 Golden from my Vita, this was the way to do it. As well as now. But now, if I ever want to play any Vita games, it's just right there and just pop them in.
What's cool is, this is also sort of evidence that Sony might be crazy enough to make a dedicated cloud remote play handheld, like you're hearing rumors about. In this case, this would be sort of the inverse of that, where it had remote play. They were hyping it up. This was back. These things. When did this come out? This was like maybe
2014, 15.
Like that pretty recently. And it's weirdly, it's like weirdly. They're not super rare. They sell for more than they did at launch, which is impressive. That's always kind of an odd testament to like how many of them were in the wild and how much in demand they were. I remember I think I had taken mine at the Goodwill. I got it on like a dirt cheap like flash sale and then didn't bother with a memory card. And then I was like, what am I going to do with this? And then I wish I held on to it. But it's such a cute little thing. Like, it's very funny to see that little tiny doodad there.
I think what I like most about all of these that you've gone over is they're almost all cute little guys, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Their design work is great.
Man, Sony made the Walkman and the transistor radio. They know how to make little tiny cute things, little guys, little tiny, slim things, little gizmos. But yeah, I don't know. PlayStation TV. It was also, I remember when that got revealed. I think it was like an E3 thing, and they had a big trailer for it. And it was just funny because of sort of everyone just in the immediate circle of, dedicated console gaming people were like, who is this for? Do we need it? Do we want it? Do we like it? We don't know. We're all confused. We're like, what is this? Why is it? Why is it?
And that is a successful launch.
Yep.
If you confuse half the audience, it's a success.
Now, here's one that's the most recent. The DualShock 4 back button controller attachment, which we've talked about before. It's kind of what got me thinking about this whole list. That, like, just again, the fact that Sony will occasionally be like, they call it the factory. They say, we got a great idea for a new PlayStation branded thing we want you to make. And the guy at the factory's like, all right, what is it? And it's like, it's 2 extra buttons. Say again?
With an LCD screen.
A small screen. You plug it into the back of your... I mean, you could just get one of these for like $27. They're still on Amazon. I can't imagine why they aren't flying off the shelves. We totally thought that this was going to be like, oh, this is a sneak preview of what is in store for the PS5 controller. It's going to have more buttons. And then it didn't, unless you bought the DualSense Edge. I guess this is a cheaper solution for if you want more buttons. Yeah, you could map the buttons to the back. You can do whatever you want back there. And it's got a little screen. The screen is what really kind of throws it for a curve.
They should let you play PlayStation Pocket games on it.
I agree.
You're absolutely right. You hold your controller backwards.
I think the kind of I think the screen was important for that because they had to find a way to program the buttons, and that was putting a little miniature computer in there with the screen, I think was the easiest route for them to go during that time for some weird reason, than having a setting in the PS4 to customize it that read a random accessory in a controller. I don't think that...
I guess it's just odd to see like a thing that doesn't normally have a screen getting an accessory that has a screen on it, with the exception of like the PS1 LCD screen. It just seems odd to have something that's like noticeably more complex attached to something like that. So it's an odd choice. Just $15 a button though. What a deal. What a bargain.
Hey, you know.